Discover 5 spine-chilling teacher tales, sinister secrets revealed in haunted classrooms. The clock struck midnight in Maplewood High, but the echoes of the past reverberated through its dimly lit halls. Jamie, a 34-year-old teacher, had no idea what shadows lurked within the walls of her seemingly perfect school. As she walked in every morning, enthusiasm bubbling in her chest, the atmosphere around her felt deceptively tranquil. Little did she know, the ochre-tinted walls that held her students' laughter were concealing dark secrets that twisted under the surface, waiting for the night to expose them. That first day back, Jamie barely noticed the way the branches of the ancient tree outside twisted grotesquely, like fingers clawing for help. Students whispered nervously about it, murmuring tales of spirits trapped beneath its roots. Just a myth, she dismissed softly, but even she felt the prickling unease as shadows darted past her classroom windows during after-school hours. The whispers grew louder with every unexplained accident: a toppled desk, a whispering breath in the silent corridors. The dread wrapped tighter around her like a cold, unyielding fog on a rainy afternoon, as droplets pattered against the glass. A frantic knock at her classroom door shattered her thoughts. Chris, one of the more popular teachers, stood there, his face pale. "You have to be careful, Jamie. You don't know everything about the past here," he warned, the crackle of fear evident in his voice. Without waiting for a response, he dashed away, leaving her frozen in confusion. The ominous feeling thickened in the air around her, enveloping her in a miasma of dread. Days turned into weeks as Jamie's curiosity gnawed at her. The whispers brewed a storm within her. She combed through old files, piecing together a dark tapestry of scandals, affairs, abuse, and the eerie disappearances that cast long shadows over the faculty. The kindness she once saw in her colleagues morphed into something sinister, lurking in the corners of her mind. As she confronted them about the truths buried deep, she found nothing but silent glances and furtive whispers, each interaction coiling tighter the web of suspicion that bound her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One night, fueled by determination, Jamie returned to the school after hours. The air crackled with tension, and the flickering lights cast unsettling shadows over long-abandoned art projects. Her heart raced as she stepped into the teacher's lounge, where an ancient yearbook lay, its pages yellowed with time. As she leafed through, the air grew colder. A door creaked slowly behind her, sending chills tumbling down her spine. She spun around, her breath hitching in her throat, and there they were, ghostly figures of students, eyes wide with despair and rage, anchored to the very halls that had once adorned their youthful laughter. The weight of realization crashed down on Jamie, the darkness surrounding her now palpable. She was not merely a seeker of truth, she was now a witness to tragedies unlived. As despair wrapped around her heart, a voice hissed from the shadows, "You should never have asked too many questions. Now it's time to pay the price." The door slammed shut, plunging her into darkness. Trapped between the echoes of the living and the cries of the dead, Jamie stood paralyzed, heart racing, ensnared by secrets that demanded she unearth them all. A reckoning was brewing, and she was at its center. The darkness pressed in around Jamie, a suffocating cloak that consumed her mind. The breath of the specters brushed past her, cold and uninviting. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but all she could do was stand there, heart hammering in her chest. The hissing voice echoed in her ears, thick with malice, filling her with an overwhelming sense of dread. "Why are you here?" she whispered into the void, her voice shaking. The figures faded, their faces twisted in silent screams, and the chilling sound of brittle laughter filled the air. Deep down, she knew she needed answers. She had stirred the dead, and now they were hungry for her. Lightning cracked outside, illuminating the classroom in fleeting bursts, allowing her to see the terror etched upon the ghostly faces. Each one, a faded memory of sorrow buried under the layers of betrayal. The stories of their lives tugged at her, begging for release, and as the wind howled outside, Jamie felt a shifting pull toward the yearbook on the table, the artifact of the horror surrounding her. Compelled, she rushed to the yearbook, flipping through pages worn with time. Pictures captured smiles and laughter, oblivious to the horrors that would soon unfold. A name caught her eye, a certain Emily Harris, buried beneath the grinning faces. Beside it, a date 1998. Instinctively, she felt a pulse of energy vibrating through her fingertips as she traced the name, and with it came a flood of memories not her own. "You have to help us," cried the voice of Emily, her eyes wide and tear-stained. "They took us away when we asked questions. They said we were lying, we never came back." The anguish seeped through the walls, coating the air in bitter despair. Jamie's stomach turned at the realization these poor souls had been silenced, pushed to the fringes of existence. Before Jamie could process it further, the lights flickered once more. In the electric strobe, she glimpsed an old wooden desk, its surface scratched and marked. Her heart sank as she noticed a chair pulled out from underneath it, as if inviting someone to sit. The ambience thickened with tension, the air filled with the murmurs of the lost. Reluctantly, she approached the desk. The chilling presence closed in around her, sapping her strength. What if she opened the wrong door? As if answering her fears, a cacophony of whispers escalated into a roar. Jamie's head spun, and she staggered backward. No. She couldn't give in. She had come too far. Right as she turned to run, a cold hand gripped her wrist, pulling her back. The world blurred as she tumbled into memories that were not her own, fragments of shattered fear, corners filled with shadows, and corners turned in desperate escape. "Help us. We are trapped." The ghosts cried out, merging their voices into a haunting chorus. Panic engulfed Jamie as she struggled against the icy hold of the specter. The room seemed to close in on her, darkness swirling, gnashing with unseen teeth. Just as soon as the grip tightened, it released, the voices fading into a ghostly wail. Jamie stumbled forward, gasping for breath, eyes darting around the room. What had she awakened? The room grew still, eerily quiet, but not for long. The heavy thud of footsteps approached from outside the teacher's lounge. Each sound sent jolts of fear racing through her. She pressed herself against the wall, heart threatening to escape her chest. "I'm not alone," she thought, shuddering. The heavy footsteps stopped abruptly beside the door, and she held her breath, straining to listen. A voice spoke softly, chilling her to the bone. "Jamie, are you in there? We need to talk." Her mind raced. Who was it? Why now? The truth was still buried, but she had questions that could unravel the very fabric of Maplewood High. As she peered through the glass window of the door, the figure loomed dangerously close, shrouded in shadows. "You shouldn't have dug too deep," it whispered, sending tendrils of dread snaking down her spine. She had awakened something that might just consume her whole. The whisper lingered, wrapping around her like a vice. Jamie's fingers trembled as she pressed them against the glass, desperate to catch a glimpse of the figure. The shadows danced, but all she could make out was a vague outline, large and imposing. "Who are you?" she managed to choke out, her voice barely more than a breath. No answer came, just a heavy silence that filled the air like wet fog. The figure shifted, and for a moment, she thought it might leave. But then the doorknob rattled. Panic coursed through her veins, her instincts screaming to run, to hide. But where? There was nowhere to go in this cursed room, surrounded by memories and echoes that wanted to ensnare her. "Jamie!" The voice called again, rising above the insistent knocking. "You're in danger. Let me in." There it was again, an urge, a terrifying need to trust. She hesitated, heart pounding, weighing the risk of opening the door against the chilling reality of staying trapped inside. The specter's whispers crawled back into her mind, repeating their desperate pleas. "It's a trap," she thought. Yet, another part of her yearned for the relief that might come with opening the door. The choice pressed heavy on her. Jamie clenched her fists, the nails biting into her palms. "What are you?" She yelled back, wishing to assert control, but the question fell limp against the door. I know what happened to Emily, and the others. The voice pressed, desperation lacing the words, layering the air with urgency. You have to listen. You stirred them. They're angry, and they're coming for you. Her breath hitched. The memories of the specters were like nails scratching at the back of her consciousness, and she felt home. The connection to Emily, now palpable and throbbing with anger and resentment, dragged her forward, even as warnings clamored in her mind. The footsteps paused and then resumed, now pacing, almost impatiently. Each footfall matched the pulse thrumming in Jamie's ear. She backed away from the door, her gut churning as the figure's voice morphed into a snarl, low and guttural. You've awoken them. It barked, echoing in her mind. You've disturbed their rest, and now you will pay. They will take from you what they've lost. Adrenaline surged through her, urging her limbs to move. She couldn't be here, couldn't let them take anything more from her. But when she turned to flee, a shadow darted past her, barreling into the room like a storm. She felt the suffocating grip of cold air cover her skin, a whisper of nightmares clawing back at her. No! She screamed, as the specters materialized once again, faces twisted in terror and rage. The walls echoed with their fury, the hollow cries bouncing off the windows, their anguish rising to a dark crescendo. Jamie stumbled backwards, collapsing to the floor, trembling as familiarity twisted her mind. The memories of their pain fed on her fear, pulling her deeper into their abyss. She gasped as shadows surged toward her, coiling like serpents, tightening around her. Names whispered through the maelstrom, Emily, Sarah, Jake, each one pulling her down into the depths that chaotic surge. A glimmer of realization pierced through her dread. I know you. She shouted, her voice raw. You want freedom. You want to be heard. Instantly, the rushing shadows paused, uncertainty rippling through them. The teacher's figure seemed to surge back to life, pushing forward again with relentless force. Then help us. It howled, its shadow almost morphing, taking on the shape of a broken promise. I can't, I don't know how. Jamie gasped, the weight of their pain crushing her. And without warning, the door burst open, and light flooded the room. As Jamie shielded her eyes, the specters recoiled, their forms shattering like glass, fading into the light, leaving only the echoes of their cries. Run, Jamie. Run now. The voice warned again, but she hesitated, staring into the light. What lay outside that door? Was it safety, or more dark secrets waiting to drag her back under? Before she could decide, a cold hand seized her ankle, pulling her back towards the shadows. Panic gripped her throat, and she screamed, run. But would it be enough to escape the clutches of the darkness that had claimed so many before her? Jamie's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a desperate plea for survival. The grip around her ankle tightened, cold fingers dragging her back into the swirling darkness. She clawed at the floor, nails scraping against the rough surface, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Let go! She shouted, her voice cracking. The shadows roared in response, a cacophony of sorrow and rage threatening to swallow her whole. Just as her fingers slipped, the doorframe flickered back into view, an inviting halo of light. I can't. She thought. I have to escape. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, Jamie kicked her leg free, sending a wave of icy tendrils scattering back into the corners. But the darkness recoiled, spitting out words like venom. You think you can escape so easily? The low growl echoed, the taunt wrapping around her like a noose. Jamie stumbled into the light, her heart racing, pulse echoing in her ears. She didn't look back, she just ran. The hallway stretched out, infinite and distorted, with walls that pulsated as if alive, echoing the specter's anguished cries. Where do I go? She gasped, her breath hanging thick in the air. The light flickered, and whispered promises coaxed her. Freedom is this way, just trust. Open the door. She rounded a corner, nearly crashing into a cracked mirror that shimmered and shifted, curving her reflection into grotesque shapes. Her face twisted with fear, eyes wide and wild. But when she peered closer, the image changed. It was Emily, her friend's anguished face staring back, mouth moving but no sound came. "Emily!" Jamie cried, reaching out. The glass rippled, but the spectre's eyes seemed to plead, warning her of what lurked behind. The ghost faded again, swallowed by a writhing darkness that pooled at the edges of the mirror. At that moment, a sudden realization struck. "They need me," she breathed. Every twist of pain they felt echoed within her, urging her to listen, to understand. If I just a door loomed at the end of the hallway, partially ajar. It was different from the others. Light spilled out, beckoning her with an almost palpable warmth. Why did it feel like home? Without thinking, she lunged for it, pushing it open, but as the door swung, a gust of frozen air slammed into her. The temperature plummeted, as if winter had seeped into the very fabric of the air. Shadows flickered, a scream echoing just beyond her reach. In that moment, she hesitated, an internal battle raging. What if this door led to her salvation? Or worse, what if it sealed her fate? As the whispers grew louder, clamoring for her attention, Jamie felt the walls of the hallway breathe around her, shifting like a living entity. A sense of urgency snapped her from her trance. She had to decide. "Look inside," a voice urged, piercing the noise with haunting clarity. With a deep breath, she steeled herself and stepped through, bracing for whatever was waiting. Her body shivered as she crossed the threshold, eyes wide open. The room was dark, almost suffocating, and filled with the scent of something stifling and sweet. Flickering candles illuminated slivers of space, revealing scattered books and old furniture draped in white sheets, like ghosts of the past trapped in time. Tremors ran through her legs, fear clawing at her throat. In the chill, a figure moved. A woman, draped in fabric that fluttered like petals caught in a breeze, yet her eyes burned with anger. "You don't belong here," she hissed. "You must leave before it's too late." And with that last warning, the candles flickered so violently that they nearly extinguished. "Wait!" Jamie shouted, lunging forward, but the woman faded, vanishing into the maze of shadows. What did she mean? Was it too late? The door behind her slammed shut, plunging Jamie into darkness, the air thick with foreboding. The echoes of the specters surged again, drowning out her thoughts. "You've come to help us." Or had she only stepped deeper into the nightmare? Now, she had only one choice: keep venturing into the unknown or risk remaining trapped in a dark oblivion. As she stood, trembling in the encroaching shadows, she couldn't shake the feeling that something else, something more sinister was lurking, waiting for her to make a move. "Will you help us, Jamie?" the whisper asked. With no way out, she stepped further into the darkness, heart racing, and faced the chilling reality of what lay ahead. What more would she uncover in this twisted web of despair? The air was thick, oppressive, almost alive in the dim interior of the room. Jamie's heart pounded like a war drum, each beat declaring her presence to whatever lurked in the darkness. Flickering candles bathed the peeling walls with a dim glow, casting twisted shadows that danced mockingly around her. "Help us!" the whisper reverberated through the stagnant air, wrapping around her like a shroud. It was a sound both desperate and alluring, pulling at the frayed edges of her sanity. "Who are you?" Jamie shouted, her voice trembling, echoing strangely against the decrepit walls. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the guttering of candle flames. She peered deeper into the gloom, straining to see through the veil of shadows. Shapes shifted just beyond the flickering light, teasing her vision like phantoms. There was no turning back, not anymore. She had stepped into this nightmare, and the only way out was through whatever haunted this place. In the far corner, she noticed a massive wooden bookshelf, its surface coated in dust like a forgotten grave. As Jamie approached, the whispers intensified, a choir of regrets flooding her mind. She reached out, running her fingers across the spines of the books, each one exuding a malevolence that made her skin itch. "Don't touch them," a voice hissed, sharp and urgent. Jamie whipped around, heart racing, but the source was nowhere to be seen. A chill washed over her as she realized that the books bore the names of those who had entered this place before her, names etched into the leather covers with a dull, crimson hue. "Are they trapped?" she whispered, a lump forming in her throat. "You have to find the truth," the whispers surged again, a cacophony of anguish that pierced through the darkness. "Before they find you." Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted, a low rumbling threatening to swallow her whole. Panic surged through her veins. She backed away from the shelf, startled as the very walls seemed to ripple, pulsing with life. "What do you want from me?" she pleaded, her voice cracking. "You know," a slithering voice sneered from the shadows. "You already know what binds us here." Jamie's mind raced. The truth? What did that even mean? As if in response to her confusion, the candles flickered again, casting an eerie light over a small table in the center of the room. An old journal lay there, pages stained and torn, its cover charcoal black. Against her better judgment, she stepped closer, the air thickening with every heartbeat. She reached for the journal, and the moment her fingers brushed the cover, the temperature plummeted. A scream echoed in her mind, a piercing wail of despair that made her ears ring. "What is this?" she gasped, stumbling back as the whispers quieted, replaced by a stillness that felt heavy, pregnant with anticipation. "Unlock the truth," the voice pushed, insistent and breathless. "Only then can you help us." But what if the truth was more than she could bear? As she hesitated, a cold draft swept through the room, extinguishing the candles one by one until darkness enveloped her. In that suffocating silence, Jamie felt hands cold, delicate, and desperate grasping at her arms. Panic surged, and she fought against the unseen grip, unable to tell if they were alive or merely shades of the past. "Help us, help," the whispers begged, now desperate and pleading. Trapped in the tightening grip of shadows, she realized that revealing this long-buried truth could either save or damn her. What sinister secrets lurked within those pages? With a deep, shaky breath, Jamie lunged back toward the table, clasping the journal tightly. As she opened it, the pages seemed to flutter madly, the words swirling as if alive. "What have I done?" she whispered, dread billowing inside her like a storm. The room shuddered, groaning under the weight of what had been unleashed. Jamie felt the darkness close in around her, the shadows clashing and writhing, as if they were alive, demanding to be heard, and then, with a sudden, jarring clarity, she understood some secrets are not meant to be unearthed, and some doors should never be opened. What darkness would she awaken by seeking the truth? As her heart raced, a voice broke through the chaos, cold and sinister, whispering, "Welcome, my dear. It's time for you to choose, their salvation or your own." In that moment, Jamie knew she had to make a choice. But would she be strong enough to face what lay ahead? The air pulsed around her as she stood on the precipice of fate, the weight of the journal heavy in her hands. What price would she pay to save those trapped within the dark? Her breath caught as shadows swarmed closer, and she realized she might not be able to escape the choice that awaited her. What twisted revelations would the pages reveal? And would she be able to survive the answers? The instant Jamie opened the journal, a low growl echoed from the depths of the shadows, vibrating in her chest. The weight of the darkness pressed in, constricting her breath. She fought to keep her eyes on the page, hoping to summon the courage to read the words that now writhed like living creatures. Ink spilled across the first page like blood, forming jagged lines of script. Each curve and twist seemed to taunt her. She could barely comprehend at first, but the whispers, a chorus growing shrill and frantic, urged her on. "Read it. Know what binds us, know our suffering." With shaking hands, Jamie steadied herself and read the first line aloud. In this house of despair suddenly, the shadows surged, pooling together like a beast awakening from slumber. She dropped the journal as if it burned her. It hit the floor with a resonant thud, the candle remnants on the table rattling in protest. "Foolish girl." The voice hissed angrily, reverberating off the walls. "You must continue." Jamie looked around, searching for a source in the pitch-black void. Shadows writhed and twisted around her like a living tapestry, eager to ensnare her further. The voices now melded into a singular scream, a cacophony of torment that raced through her mind. Finish it. Finish what you started. She felt the cold kiss of fingers graze her arm, thrilling and terrifying. The influence of those lost in this dark place seeped through her skin, igniting an overwhelming urge to help. But at what cost? Make your choice, the whisper echoed once more, this time sounding more menacing. To bury is to be buried, to reveal is to destroy. Jamie took a timid step back, eyes wide. She was at the crucible of a choice, but how could she choose when the shadows twisted her very essence? Doubt gnawed at her insides, threatening to consume her. The journal lay open, the pages flicking with a life of their own. They started to smear with fresh ink, forming new words right before her eyes. Jamie leaned closer, intrigued despite the danger. A life given, one line read, for a truth that must remain buried. Her heart raced. What kind of truth was this? She remembered the names on the bookshelves. Their stories were now entwined with hers, and the weight of their suffering settled heavily on her shoulders. Was she willing to become part of their tragic tale? As she contemplated, the candle flames flickered weakly, sputtering against the rising darkness. A cold laugh sliced through, echoing through the corners of the room. You think you can turn back? You think you can escape their plight? They will consume you. The air warped around her, a whirlwind of shadows converging as if trying to pull her into the darkness where none returned. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the memories of those who had been lost anchored her like a weight. Jamie gathered her courage, her voice firmer than before. I can't just leave you. I need to know. She stepped closer to the journal, reaching for the ink, willing herself to withstand whatever dark force threatened her. Good, the sinister voice purred, now slithering through the air. Let the truth guide you. But remember, the truth is a blade, it cuts both ways. Just then, a loud crash echoed from somewhere deep in the house, shattering her focus. A window broke, shards grating against the ground. The shadows recoiled momentarily before surging back, hungry and agitated. Find the truth, they implored again in unison, reverberating like an incantation. Or be the next name on the shelf. The walls trembled, and Jamie felt it, a pulse beneath her feet, a heartbeat of the very house, demanding she act. Your choice is fading. What will you reveal? The voice howled, almost too eager. As the shadows inched closer, Jamie's heart thundered violently against her ribs. She had to decide. Would she dig deeper, uncovering secrets meant to stay buried, risking the fate that loomed over her? With uncertainty overwhelming her, she nodded towards the open pages, determination igniting a flicker of courage. She knew she had to plunge into this darkness, but would it lead to her salvation or her doom? The air thickened around her, and she heard the voices scream, choose before it's too late. She gripped the edge of the table, yearning to scream back in defiance. The storm brewed, shadows swirling ominously. What awaited her in the revelation of the truth? In that moment of dread, a realization gripped her. Whatever she found, it would change everything. Her, the souls within the walls, this cursed house. The question echoed in her mind as she prepared to confront the darkness. Was she ready for the truth, whatever the cost? Jamie took a deep breath, fighting to steady her shaking hands. The shadows danced closer, swirling like ink dropped into water, their whispers swelling into a maddening symphony. Read on, reveal the truth. With a shudder, she leaned over the journal once more. The ink pulsated, each word pushing against her consciousness, urging her to acknowledge what lay hidden between the lines. She focused, her eyes tracing the chaotic script that flickered, shifting as if alive. In this house of despair she started again, the weight of the words pressing down on her like a vice. The moment she uttered the phrase, the atmosphere thickened. Pulse quickened, echoes of past sorrow flooded the room. She could almost see them, the lost souls, trapped in the web of their own tales of woe. You must uncover our secrets, they whispered, their voices clawing at her sanity. As Jamie read deeper, visions flashed before her. A young girl, no older than 10, stood in the corner, eyes wide in fear. She was clutching a doll, its head cracked and eyes lifeless. "Save us!" The girl's mouth moved, but the sound was drowned out by the echoing shadow's screams as old as time longing for release. "Your words bring more than you realize." The voice thundered, shaking the very foundation of the house. "What you seek comes at a price." The floor shook, and Jamie stumbled. The journal trembled in her hands, pages flipping wildly, revealing fragments of an anguished history, betrayals, curses, dark rituals carried out in this very space. She felt a desperate pull in her chest, an urgency she couldn't ignore. "No. You have to tell me more." But the shadows surged, engulfing her in a swirling mass of dread. The very walls began to close in, the air thick and oppressive. Revealing truths awakens old spirits. The chill of a long-dead breath brushed against her neck, sending shivers racing down her spine. "Stop. I need to understand." She screamed, but the shadows only pressed closer, a malevolent tide dragging her further into madness. The girl in the vision melted into the shadows, her cries echoing as an ominous chant. Fate-sealed names, forgotten truths must rot with every heartbeat. Jamie felt the resolve inside her slip. Would she be the next name buried in the pages of this cursed journal? Would the darkness consume her? Adrenaline surged through her, she gripped the journal tighter, determined. Determined to expose it all. "Beneath the ink lies a tale." The voice rippled through the air, now softer and dripping with sinister promise. A sacrifice that must be made. It beckoned her deeper, seducing her curiosity with the allure of knowledge. Jamie fought against the rising tide of despair, determined to unveil the threads of fate woven into the fabric of the house. Suddenly, the journal snapped shut as if alive, a cruel laugh echoing in her ears. "Will you accept the bargain?" The lights flickered violently overhead, and Jamie felt heat rise in her chest. "What bargain?" She screamed, desperate for a sign, clarity amongst sheer chaos. The candles sputtered ominously, their flames battling against the encroaching darkness. "The choice is forgotten," the shadows whispered, serpentine forms looming closer. "You've already walked the path. Now, pay the toll." Jamie's heart raced, panic clawing at her throat. But she wouldn't turn back, not now. The truth tugged at her like a lighthouse guiding her through the storm. She had to finish reading, to know what dark origins lay in this hallway of sorrow. A piercing shriek echoed, resonating through the dark hallways, making her freeze. "Choose quickly," they urged, their desperation palpable. Dark figures loomed nearby, eyes like burning coals watching her every move. Time slipped, each second stretching into infinity as she prepared herself for the next revelation. She could feel the walls of the house pulsing, alive with dread. Cold fingers brushed against her spine again like ghostly whispers summoning her forward. What if the truth you seek is more horrific than you ever imagined? In that split second, Jamie took one last deep breath. "I'm ready," she declared, pulse racing as the shadows surged, hungry for what lay ahead. But the question lingered in the air, seeping into her thoughts. Could she truly uncover what lay beneath the ink or seal her own fate forever? With a final, jarring crash, the journal flew open, its pages flapping furiously like the wings of a trapped bird. Jamie squinted through the chaotic flicker of dim candlelight. Shadows writhed around her, a wild, swirling storm of darkness, daring her to read further. The air was stifling, an electric tension filled the room like a live wire, and Jamie could feel the weight of unseen eyes boring into her. "You must choose," the deep voice echoed, reverberating through her bones. The shadows, dark tendrils of sorrow, coiled tighter around her, as if enticing her with desperate promises. She glanced at the page, words now sprawling, blurring under the pressure of her racing heart. To see, to know, of fate revealed. Read the blackened text. The whispers intensified, a cacophony rising, urging her onward. "Are you strong enough, dear child?" "Enough," she roared, steeling her resolve. The cold sweat clung to her skin, clammy and chilling, but there was no turning back. She pressed her trembling fingers down onto the pages, searching for answers. With each fresh line she read, a vibrant landscape of horrors unfurled before her mind's eye. A flickering image formed, a banquet, lavishly decorated, laughter spilling from hollow cheeks. Guests with eyes missing, their mouths frozen in screams, feasting on cold, rotting flesh. Sacrifice must be made, echoed hauntingly in her ears, wrapping itself around her thoughts. Jamie gasped, reeling from the wave of gruesome imagery. Deep scars of betrayal, they flashed like lightning inside her head, the betrayal of trust, of kin. What was she stepping into? The floorboards creaked ominously underfoot, a low growl emanating from the shadows. Every soul has its price, they hissed, slithering ever closer. She felt suffocated, each breath dragging through a heavy haze of dread. Then came the girl again, tiny and delicate. Please, you can't let them have me. But the shadows only laughed, a chorus of sinister glee, dragging her deeper into their web of despair. Do you hear her cries? They beckoned Jamie closer, their voices dripped with malice. You are one of us now, read the tale to save her. No. Jamie shot back, shaking her head violently. I want to be pulled in. The shadows surged, angry and relentless. You already are. They thundered, twisting and writhing about her life as if squeezing the very essence of hope from her heart. With shaking fingers, Jamie flipped through the pages faster. Desperate for liberation, she stumbled upon a section written in a jagged scrawl. The heart of the innocent shall pay the toll. A pool of icy terror settled in her stomach. The weight of it threatened to crush her spirit. Could it be? Was the girl's life in her hands? The temperature dropped, she felt the chill creep in, her breath frosting in the air. The shadows seemed to take a step back, almost anticipatory, as if waiting for the moment she would drown in fear. Make your offer, the wailing voices moaned, their tone a twisted lullaby. Do you save an innocent, or do you claim their fate as your own? What choice could she make? Jamie struggled against the mounting terror, feeling her panic claw at her throat. A sacrifice? The specter's whispers fused with her heartbeat. The breath of those lost souls, waiting. The girl's eyes pleading, Jamie's world narrowed, the edges of her sanity fraying. No, no, she murmured, heart racing. But the multiple choices loomed, suffocating, blurring the line between salvation and doom. What will it be, dear child? They taunted, shadows swirling, fleshless fingers beckoning. The truth demands a payment. Are you ready to spill blood for answers? As the house seemed to dissolve around her, Jamie could feel the very foundations vibrating, testing her resolve. Would she yield to the demands of malevolent forces? With so much at stake, could she risk everything, and would it cost her more than she could fathom? The weight of her decision pulsed within her, thrumming like a steady heartbeat in the enveloping dark. She clutched the journal, eyes wild. I'll save her. She screamed, the urgency spilling from her. In that moment of desperation, the shadows parted, revealing a path laden with consequences beyond her wildest fears. But what awaited her? A glimmer of hope or a living nightmare? The darkness quivered, hungry for her choice, stretching for her next move. With her heart drumming loud against the weight of it all, Jamie took a shaky step forward into the ominous unknown. Would she reclaim the light or surrender to the darkness forever? The air crackled as Jamie stepped into the abyss, shadows swirling around her like a dark cloak. She felt a pull, an urgent beckoning that dared her to move forward into the darkness that awaited. The candle flickered wildly, casting malevolent shapes that danced and flickered, like creatures disturbed from slumber. As she advanced, Jamie could hear the eerie silence, oppressive and thick like the damp air before a storm. The journal whispered in her grasp, its pages throbbing with a life of their own, begging her to read, to understand, to suffer for the innocent girl now echoing in her mind. What have I done? She gasped, regret slicing through her. The words spilled from the book, trembling with a vibrancy that demanded to be heard. They were alive, hungry, and twisted. The atmosphere changed. The shadows congealed, forming into shapes she could barely comprehend. Dread pooled in her gut, but she pressed on. She needed to know. The girl's face haunted her, the desperation radiating from her pleading eyes. Make your choice, the shadows hissed again, voices layered like the sound of rustling leaves in a storm. Will you save the innocent, or will you doom them both? With a deep breath, Jamie swallowed down the rising panic. I'll save her. The words crashed out of her, surprisingly fierce against the chaos pulling at her heart. But what would she have to do to fulfill that promise? Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted, groaning like a waking beast. The room itself seemed to pulse, and the shadows shrank back momentarily, seemingly amused by the girl's fervent determination. Then, as if responding to her commitment, the journal reacted, pages flipping violently on their own, stopping at a drawing that struck terror deep within her. It depicted a ritual, a circle of candles, blood pooling at the center, faces marked with grief and malevolence. Jamie's breath caught, stinging her lungs. She felt the air thicken, tasting panic as the chilling realization washed over her. This was not just a choice, it was a descent into madness. Do you see? The shadows murmured, their glee palpable, as if reveling in her horror. Life must be exchanged. The innocent requires an offering. The image of the girl flickered into her mind, her innocence radiating through the chaos. Could she truly take a life to spare another? Jamie felt her heart fracture, the guilt and terror warring within her. But then she remembered the laughter, the hollow faces from her vision. The banquet was real, and it craved. The shadows tightened around her again, the cadence shifting as if they were gearing up for a grand performance. Jamie's mind raced with thoughts that felt like knives, slicing through the fog. No, she breathed, shaking her head violently, as if trying to shake them free. Yet she could already feel the invite lingering in the air, intoxicating and terrifying. This isn't my choice. But the deeper she fought, the deeper the shadows wrapped around her, cruel and unyielding. Are you ready to pay the price? The voice was low, dangerous, like the rumble before thunder. Sacrifice or silence, choose. Feeling her knees weaken, Jamie clutched the journal tighter, her heart thrumming wildly against her ribcage. A part of her wanted to flee, but the girl's crystal blue eyes lingered in her mind, begging for salvation amidst the chaos. A scream clawed up her throat, but the words spilled out as a whisper. I can't do this. Let her go. Too late, the shadows mocked, coiling tighter. You belong to us now. Suddenly, a blinding white light erupted from the journal, cutting through the darkness like a knife, scattering the shadows momentarily. Jamie squinted against the brilliance, her heart racing with renewed hope. Could this be her escape? Or a trap laid in the guise of salvation? As the dark swirled back into form, Jamie stood on the precipice of her decision. Would she leap toward the light or surrender to the shadows seeking their due? Then, from somewhere deep within the swirling darkness, a chilling voice arose, sharper than the others, crisp and commanding. Your choice has awakened them, and now they hunger. The shadows circled around her, their laughter resonating within the walls, echoing her deepest fears. What price would she truly pay to save the girl? As the shadows closed in again, threatening to consume her, Jamie realized there was no turning back now. The real question loomed over her like an impending storm: would she find the strength to confront the darkness, or would she be swallowed whole by the choices she made? The shadows swirled around Jamie, thick and suffocating, whispering malicious promises in her ear. She clutched the journal tighter, feeling the heat of it pulse against her palms. The cries of the innocent girl echoed through her mind, urging her to save her. Panic gripped her heart as she weighed the desperate plea against the sinister laughter of the shadows. I can't do this. She shouted into the dark, her voice trembling. There has to be another way. Desperation clawed at her throat, but the shadows only intensified, swirling around her like a storm, each whisper like a blade scraping against her resolve. Life must be exchanged, the sinister voice taunted, echoing in the hollow stillness. What will it be, dear child? The urgency in the air crackled as Jamie's heart raced. Images of the girl, those innocent eyes danced in her memory, and a dangerous clarity filled her. She couldn't let another soul be sacrificed. She would not be complicit in this horror. No. You don't own me. She yelled defiantly, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a ray of light. I won't be a part of your darkness any longer. As she shouted, the shadows recoiled, and she felt the grip around her start to loosen, just a sliver, but enough to breathe. Jamie glanced at the journal, feeling its energy shift, a tangible pulse of power. I refuse to pay the price, she declared, awareness dawning upon her. Then, in a moment of fierce determination, she flipped the journal around, presenting its pages to the swirling darkness, defying them with her resolute heart. I choose to reveal the truth. No more hiding, no more bloodshed. The room erupted in a cacophony of wails and howls, shadows writhing in fury. Foolish girl. They snarled, but their power wavered, shot through with her conviction. Jamie could feel a warmth spreading from the journal, yet like an explosion of light that began to push the darkness back. Emily, I'm here to help you, Jamie whispered, channeling her intention through the flickering air. I'll uncover your truth. I promise. She turned the pages, reading the words etched in timeless ink, revealing the horrid tales long buried beneath layers of fear and secrecy. The shadows shrieked as the truths poured forth, betrayals from faculty, dark rituals born from a thirst for power, an ancient pact that demanded sacrifice. Each revelation seemed to burn the darkness, igniting the room with radiant light that pushed back fear as they morphed into a whirl of smoke and ash. Your time is over, she called, summoning every ounce of bravery within her. You cannot hold these innocent souls hostage any longer. The words thrummed through her like a heartbeat, resonating with the memories of the lost. She plunged deeper into the journal, feeling the tether to Emily's ghost strengthen. With every story unearthed, the shadows screeched in agony, struggling against the burgeoning light. Jamie felt a fire ignite in her chest, a blazing hope that coursed through her veins. Just when it seemed the shadows might pull her back, the candles blazed white-hot, bright and fierce. Now! Jamie shouted, channeling the energy that swirled in her, launching it toward the oppressive darkness. A storm of light erupted from her fingertips, and she directed it toward the encroaching shadows. Be free! She cried, unleashing a surge of light that washed over the specters. The trapped souls, awash with overwhelming relief and joy, began to emerge from the depths of the darkness, their anguished faces softening under the warm glow. Thank you. Emily's voice rang out, clear and pure, as she stepped into the light, her form radiant with newfound freedom. A cascade of souls followed, their whispers no longer filled with fear, no longer lost. The walls trembled, the shadows dispersing, fading into silence, leaving Jamie standing in the center of the room, breathless and trembling, not from fear, but from sheer exhilaration. She had won, she had liberated those who had suffered. As she looked around, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, revealing the old, dust-laden room that had held so many horrors. The journal slowly crumbled away in her hands, its power spent, the connection severed. Jamie felt a weight lift from her heart, clarity replacing the fog of despair. Smiling with tears in her eyes, she whispered, "You're free now." In that final moment, Jamie felt the love and gratitude of the souls she saved wrap around her like a warm embrace, guiding her safely back into the light of a new dawn. She stepped out of the teacher's lounge, leaving the darkness behind, filled with hope for every tomorrow. The walls of Maplewood High no longer whispered secrets but sang songs of freedom, a new beginning rising from the ashes of the past, and with that triumphant spirit, the sun broke through the horizon. Jamie took a deep breath, savoring the bittersweet taste of victory. Her heart leaped with courage. But before we part ways, listen closely. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next mind-blowing tale. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep the stories flowing. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think of Jamie's journey? What would you have done? Finally, do not wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Only true fans realize the power of supporting the channel, so let us keep the stories coming.